XRP ETFs are live. We have CME futures that are about to go live. We have institutions gearing up to flood the market with their liquidity to purchase XRP. If you own XRP or you're still sitting on the sidelines, now is the time to start paying attention. So let's dive in, see what's happening, why it matters, and how it could reshape everything we know about digital assets. All right, so if you've been living under a rock, then maybe you don't know that there have been 17 different ETFs filed for XRP. We have one that's live for futures. It's a leverage trading XRP ETF. But what is an exchange traded fund or an ETF? Basically, it allows qualified capital, things in 401ks or pension plans or other large institutions, a really easy way to access participating in digital assets. Makes it easy for Wall Street to come in. It provides a wrapper. So they have regulation, custody, and compliance, all that hold the underlying assets. So people don't have to figure out the wallets or how to custody this stuff, and you know it's safe. And it allows regular investors to gain exposure without having to understand all the complicated stuff that goes along with crypto. And that's why we've seen such a huge rise in Bitcoin in the recent year. You know, the ETFs for that, spot ETFs were launched January 10th of 2024, which was even prior to the halving last year, and we've seen a huge run up in price. It was at an all-time high even before the halving took place, which is very unusual. No matter what you say, this time is actually different. So why is this important? Well, again, it allows the institutions a really safe way to enter the market. It provides super easy exposure, and it opens it up to a global audience for capital. So ETFs remove the technical barriers, and you don't need a crypto wallet. You just need a brokerage account. So this allows XRP to be available to a completely different caliber of investor than what it has been in the past. So let's talk about where we are. What's been approved and what's going to be approved? Well, currently there's one ETF it's actually available for trade. It's been live since April 8th, and that's XRP is the ticker. And it's a 2x leverage XRP exposure ETF. The one that was approved this weekend here on April 27th is the ProShares XRP futures ETF. And there's actually three involved with that. So they have ultra short, and then short. And again, these are all futures ETFs. They don't actually need to hold XRP. That's the spot ETFs. And we'll get to that here in a minute. On the first day of trading, there was $200,000 in opening trading volume on XRP. So still kind of nascent. Not a whole lot of people know about it, but I think the people that are in with their qualified capital on that ETF may do very well. We've already seen some price appreciation since that one opened up. So ProShares, if you don't know, they are a major ETF issuer, and they were known for the futures ETFs for Bitcoin and Ethereum. And now that we have futures ETFs, and we've seen that those are getting approved, these are kind of the stepping stone towards spot ETFs being approved. So the difference between spot ETFs and futures is they can trade futures in the market. They don't have to actually buy the underlying asset, or spot, they're actually required to back the shares with the underlying asset. So they will have to actually buy a bunch of the underlying asset and then hold it. And that's what's caused the scarcity on the market for Bitcoin and Ethereum. And I think we'll see something very similar for XRP. So the SEC has moved quickly to approve these XRP ETFs that are the futures ones. And history tells us what happens next is that the spot ETFs will follow. So when could that happen? When could we see these spot ETFs go live? Well, Grayscale, their latest date that they can approve or deny, Grayscale spot ETF, is futures markets provide a regulated way for price discovery, and it's a key requirement for most spot ETF approvals by the SEC. So I don't know that we're going to get the spot ETFs approved before May 19th, but it's pretty interesting to me that they've announced this just a few days prior to their deadline for Grayscale on the 22nd. So they're going to approve or deny it, but I think we're going to have the futures market in place before that's a go live here. So here in the next 30 days, we should have approval for the spot ETFs, which is pretty exciting. So this is basically a check mark or a checkbox that the SEC and other people want in place before, big players like we'll talk about in a second, BlackRock and Fidelity and Vanguard, could potentially move into the market. And that would provide more liquidity, tighter spreads, and better pricing stability for XRP once the futures market is in place. We have futures markets now. We've got Bitfinex and some other Binance. There's a few futures market, but not in a regulated marketplace like the CME. And this is going to provide a lot of depth in the order book and a way to hedge for these large institutions. And it signals that Wall Street is primed and ready for XRP to be used in this capacity. So when Bitcoin futures went live on the CME back in 2017, that was kind of the tipping point. And XRP is now stepping into that same moment. But I don't think it's going to take quite as long as it did for Bitcoin from 2017 all the way until 2024 for the spot ETFs. I think the roadmap is pretty clear. And now that we have a new head of the SEC, Paul Adkins, in there, I think that this could happen much, much faster. And we have bipartisan approval and the want for this asset class to go mainstream. I don't know that we're going to get anything before May 19th. Again, I think that it's a prerequisite that you need the futures market for the CME to go live before we're going to see the spot ETFs approvals.